are the Utah Jazz trading Lauri Markkanen? Because last week, we pretty much led the news cycle. I appreciate that we were trending on Twitter at one point, or excuse me, X at one point last week. Appreciate all of that. And the Jazz still have not traded Lauri Markkanen. Now, there seems to be some misinformation or misnomers about timelines and, they're never going to trade him if they haven't already. They have no reason to make a trade in any kind of hurried fashion. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you they are going to trade him. But what I'm telling you is the dance partners are dwindling, because I think most people saw that the Sacramento Kings picked up DeMar DeRozan from the Chicago Bulls, essentially for free, and gave him a $76 million contract. And I think that the Sacramento Kings, according to our sources, were one of the hottest teams after Lauri Markkanen. Their fallback position was always DeMar DeRozan. You look at the San Antonio Spurs, also one of the hottest teams in for Lauri Markkanen. Well, they picked up Harrison Barnes in that DeMar DeRozan trade. And I think you're starting to see that the suitors for Lauri Markkanen, while I still think the Spurs are in the race for him, are dwindling. And I do think it is down to, and in my opinion, the most likely trade scenario is the Golden State Warriors. But here's the problem, and we've talked about this, I think, for the last 3 years. Danny Ainge is not easy or enjoyable to work with when you're trying to make a trade. And as I tweeted over the weekend, NBA sources told us again that teams are frustrated with Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz. It's why the Sacramento Kings put a stopwatch on their negotiations with the Jazz, and the Jazz essentially stopped communicating. They are not on anybody's timeline but their own. And I do believe that we are still, I would say 65-35, that Lauri Markkanen gets traded. I do think it is a real possibility, but they have no reason to trade him before their August 6th signing deadline with him. And I do call it a deadline because, again, something that most people continue to ignore is that the NBA trade deadline is February 6th. And why that mark matters so much is because if you do not trade Lauri Markkanen and you renegotiate his deal and extend him, you are unable to, as the Utah Jazz, you are unable to trade him for 6 months. And if you do the math, August 6th to February 6th is exactly 6 months. The Jazz would have exactly about half a day to trade Lauri Markkanen. And that's only if they extend him on August 6th, that exact day. If they do it on the 7th, they're not trading Lauri Markkanen this year. He will be on this team for the entire season. And I think that is not exactly what he is after. I think Lauri Markkanen knows that he is playing at his height. I think financially he understands that right now he is in probably the only and the best leverage situation he is going to have in his NBA career to get paid. And I think he knows the only way he gets paid is if he gets traded before the 6th. And the team that picks him up, let's say in this position, the Golden State Warriors, create the cap space necessary to renegotiate his deal this year so he can get a max extension this coming summer or later in this year. That's the only way this happens. And it is an incredibly complex situation that hurrying up to trade him is not solved. You don't get a better situation by rushing into a Lauri Markkanen trade. Now, again, I think teams are kind of, the way it was put to me, are over the Danny Ainge bullshit, which is, hey, we're trading Lauri Markkanen. Why don't you send us your best offer? And then you just don't hear from them for weeks. And you try to have a dialogue where you go back and forth, and it doesn't really get pushed forward. It just kind of stops. And I think that's exactly what Danny Ainge and the Utah Jazz wanted, because I don't believe that they want to trade Lauri Markkanen. There is no appetite to trade Lauri Markkanen. But Danny Ainge certainly is a guy who understands where he is and where they're going. And where they are at this point is they're not spending money on salary. They are not adding money to their salary cap. Extending Lauri Markkanen out into the future does not make a lot of sense. When the owner of the Utah Jazz is looking at almost $1 billion in cash outlay over the next 5 years to finish his NHL in Utah, the Utah Hockey Club, stadium renovation, practice facility build out, downtown revitalization. And if you watch the blowjob fellatio session that was done in the interview with Ryan Smith on local Utah TV last night, which I thought was one of the most embarrassing pieces of journalism, you very quickly see that Ryan Smith is trying to hide behind the idea that he's winning championships with the Jazz. We're doing everything we can win. They're not. They're not. So the people telling you that the Jazz are not trading Lauri Markkanen, I wouldn't buy into that. I think 65% they will try to trade Lauri because they don't want to pay him. They don't want to add a huge salary. And he's making $18 million. You're talking about more than doubling that salary. At what point in Ryan Smith's tenure has he ever doubled somebody's salary? At what point in his tenure have they built a team by adding money to their salary cap? Never is the answer. They have never done that. He has never invested in talent on this team. He has not replaced the money he sent out with Rudy and Don. I believe they will be open to, they are open to trading Lauri Markkanen. And I think it's 65% likely they do that. To whom and to where, Jake, I have no idea.
Yeah, and I think that, the DeMar trade over the weekend, to the Kings, like, that situation, people were like, oh, well, how does that affect the Markkanen situation? And I just don't know that the two were super related. I a lot of people wanted to say that the Kings were on that list, and I just don't think that they were ever aggressively going after Markkanen. I think that the Warriors are.
I think the Kings were. I think the problem with the Kings is Danny Ainge wanted Keegan Murray. They're not. I don't think they were aggressively trying to acquire Lauri Markkanen by trading Keegan Murray.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they would have loved to have added Lauri Markkanen. They were never going to do that for Keegan.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I can agree that the Kings were not aggressively pursuing Markkanen.
Well, I think either way, we know that the Warriors have made Markkanen their number one option and have been for 2 weeks now, and they want to get it done. And I think that what you were talking about, the frustration with Danny is, this is a years old debate, and it's frustrating as someone who talks Jazz and covers the Jazz on some level, and we follow this team. Like it's frustrating that Danny Ainge, is stubborn, and that's how they choose to do business. Because the thing is, I'm not 100% confident that that's how Danny wants to do business. Obviously, we know Danny knows how to build a winner. We've seen him do it through the draft. Like we know he has the plan and the formula. He knows how to do this, but I'm just not sure, that he has the backing to go out and do it the way he would typically do it, which is, hey, we're going to go out for a season and we're going to acquire draft assets, which we're then going to use in the draft and through that next free agent period to build a winner. Because this cycle, for me, felt like the cycle where you could make a big impact if you wanted to, where you could have picked up several guys through trades that could have then helped you be a playoff team. Like that could have happened, but they didn't want to do that because Ryan doesn't want to spend money on the team. So that's why I say, like, it shouldn't be, will they trade Lauri Markkanen? I believe, in my opinion, that whether it's now or a year from now, at some point he's going to move along, because I don't think you want to pay the guy. So it's hard to be excited about what's going on with the Jazz, because what they're doing to this team. That the goal is not to win a championship right now. The goal is to save money and to just continue to play meaningless basketball while the hockey team and the renovation and all this stuff gets handled. And that's difficult.
Yeah, I just don't. I think the Jazz are fighting a PR battle. I think that's what it is. They are not fighting a battle to win games. They are fighting a PR battle. And I think at some point, and I think if you are paying attention, especially in the Utah media, this is why we always talk about that there is zero accountability and that Ryan Smith controls the media in Utah. He got absolutely filleted by a local TV station last night. I mean, it's amazing how awful that interview was. It is amazing how little pushback there was. And there's this whole, this whole narrative that Ryan Smith has revitalized downtown on his own. No, the taxpayers are paying for that. The taxpayers are absolutely footing the bill for that. And you're giving Ryan Smith absolute control of the revenue and the real estate around downtown, around the Delta Center. And it's remarkable to me. And nobody is asking the questions that need to be asked. Why are you asking for a public handout when you are supposedly a billionaire?
Yeah.
Why should taxpayers chip in so that you can have a better stadium that really does not return on investment when it comes to the NHL? There is not a scenario, and I will continue to ask this. Point to me where public money, just in general, that public money was used to build a stadium and it turned out to be the best investment that municipalities made. Money came back in, it was profitable, and everybody was happy. Now, drill down on that and point to me the NHL team that got public money to build a stadium and it worked out roses for everybody. It's never happened. It's never happened. All the NHL buildings, when especially expansion and especially relocation, it's never happened where a municipality has invested money in an NHL facility and it's come back to help them and be positive and made them a return on their investment. That's never happened. And it's not going to happen here. It's not. And we're in a situation in Utah and most of the country where real estate is at an absolute standstill because we do not have low enough rates to move people. So we are looking at an explosion of multi-unit, multi-family units being built. And that includes downtown Salt Lake City. And we're talking about places like Abravanel Hall, which is a music, the heartbeat of music and music creativity, symphonies, operas. And they're talking about tearing that down so that Ryan Smith can have this space downtown. So we're going to throw the arts out so that we can give you money to make more money downtown, which is not going to be repaid, which you're never going to be asked to cut a check. And yet you're still not investing in the Jazz. You're not doing everything you can do to win. You're not big game hunting. You aren't. Yes, I agree. They tried to trade for Mikal Bridges, but they were never really in that conversation. They were never close. It was, and I love, this is the other thing. They did everything they could do to get Mikal Bridges. They did not. No, they did not. They didn't get close to the offer the Knicks made.
Yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't sell us that you've got all these picks and all these assets and you've got a treasure trove of value, and then you allegedly got outvalued by the Knicks. There's no way that's possible.
The way that you are handling this situation with the hockey club is disingenuous at best. It's not honest. It's not forthright. And again, I just say, if I could almost get on board with it if the Jazz had won and you had showed that you invest money and that you do everything you can do and that you, I don't know, owned a bunch of car dealerships and reinvested in the community and the people, and you invested in infrastructure and like your predecessor, the Miller family, did. Now, did they win games? They didn't. When Larry was alive, did they? Absolutely, they did. But Ryan Smith doesn't invest in the community. Ryan Smith does not. And furthermore, you look at the scope of the project that they're doing with the Jazz and the Delta Center and the hockey club. Where's the return on investment for taxpayers? There isn't one. And it doesn't project to be one.
Yeah.
It does not project to be one. So is what it is. I mean, we can sit here and we can go back and forth about it.
I mean, I think calling it a PR battle is exactly what it is. I mean, I think that's spot on. I think Ryan Smith and SEG are sitting here trying to, sell a story. And You know, I don't know why it has to be this way in Salt Lake, but I do wish that, you know, the media outlets that are not KSL would ask some questions, put Ryan on the spot, give him a chance to answer a question that's not how great is this going to be, or you know, how pretty is the building going to be, or like,
All they want to say is we tried our very best.
but at what point does someone say, okay, that's great, I appreciate you tried your best, but at what point do we like get over the hump? At what point are the Jazz going to be good again? At what point do you turn into an owner who actually is investing in the club? Because, and this is something nobody wants to say, I don't give a damn who you are in Salt Lake, you're not running from this. Nobody except us is saying that as an owner of the Jazz, all he's done is strip this club down. Because that's all he's done. You've gotten out of salary, you've gotten out of every situation. And I mean, again, this is speculation on my behalf, but it is my opinion. It's part of why I think they're so resistant to making an easy deal on the Lauri thing. Because if you're going to trade Markkanen, it's a clear signal. Hey, we're not winning right now. We're going to be bad. We traded our best player, and here's what we got because we're doing our best. And that, to me, in my opinion, is that is the underlying, we're never going to talk about it reason as to why Danny's being such a pain in the ass to people. Because I don't believe if you said to Danny, if Ryan Smith said to Danny Ainge, go build me an NBA championship caliber team right here in Salt Lake. That's your job. Go do it. You have the funds to do it. Tell me what the cost is. I'll cut you a check. You wouldn't be operating this way. But that's not the case. So you are operating this way. So again, what's going to be the next thing where you say we did our best? We tried. Because I just, at some point, Jazz Nation's not going to be happy with it. At some point, it comes back to get you.
Yeah, but I don't think it ever happens. I don't think anybody will ever question Ryan Smith in this town. They just don't have the balls to do it. They truly do not. Oak State James, a member of the channel for 13 months, will now proceed to stupid Dallas Mavericks comments. Dallas got better by adding Clay. In what way did they get better?
Yeah, how did they get better?
I'll wait for your answer. Would the Lakers be better if they added Lauri? Well, if it was possible for them to add Lauri Markkanen, they would be better, but it's not possible. Even if LA gets him, are they getting to the Western Conference Finals? They can't get him, so I don't think. James, I at some point want to live in the delusional circle that you live in. That, you know, that Dallas is a championship contender, and I'd love somebody to show me exactly how Dallas got better adding Klay Thompson. What is it that he does that you've seen from him in the last 2 seasons that says they got much better? Because I'm here for it. I am here for it. Here's something funny. He says, I just went to Oregon State's website. They still have the Pac-12 on their webpage.
Who cares?
Why is that funny?
Yeah.
Why would they change it? James says, in the NBA, I would say that bringing the Thunder to OKC was a good investment. Do you know how that happened? Do you know the story behind them leaving Seattle? That was not a good move in any way, shape, or form. San Diego State Glenn, the Sacramento fans screaming Keegan Murray when he hits threes is why the deal didn't happen. You were never trading him to make that deal happen. Capazzo, Larry Miller is rolling in his grave because of what Ryan has done to the Jazz. It has been frustrating. And he says, and yet those people keep getting reelected year after year. And I just ask on the council and at the county and city level, who's going to hold those people accountable for this tax? Because the final vote is coming. I think it might even be this week. So, and there are still no final details. So, again, more information keeps getting released. But I'm just asking, why was this not put on the ballot? because you know it cannot get passed. You know, if the Kansas City Chiefs cannot get a public ballot measure passed, and it failed miserably, what makes you think the Utah Jazz and the Utah Hockey Club can put a ballot measure together and get it passed publicly? You can't. So you're going to force your hand. You're going to get a public tax handout. And did anybody notice what the first thing that's going to be renovated is? The Delta Center, where they're going to retrofit the entire Delta Center, both ends of the bowl, the floor so that it is more capable to handle ice and hockey, and the outdoor expansion areas. So Ryan Smith is going to take care of himself right out of the gate. And then what's going to get built? A parking structure. Who's going to get that money? So the state and the county and the city should get the parking money. Those are all things I want talked about in public.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we losing a Bravenel Hall? Why? Why would anyway? It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous that that's on the table. Midweek Cougs, Seattle needs an NBA team back. Howard Schultz can go to hell. Some people upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you would say that the Oklahoma City Thunder move to out of Seattle was a good move tells me you don't know that story. It is one of the most egregious, terrible, awful, treasonous actions that has ever happened in professional sports. I think it was horrendous. Capazzo, Ryan Smith is doing his best at fleecing the taxpayers in Utah so he can become a true billionaire and spend as little of his own money as possible doing it.